So you've been flying for a while. You have your favorite plane at your favorite airport. You've been flying this just fine in 2D. 2D meaning on a monitor. But now you have an Oculus and you want to try out VR. So you go up and you select the options. And you select VR. And off you go. And now you're in VR. And this is how it starts up. You got your controllers in your hands here, and you press done. And it does this. It attempts to put you in the plane, but there's a little bit of lag. And as the world melts around you, you're wondering why the heck anyone would ever try to play this. Well, I'm going to show you how to take this laggy, jerky mess and turn it into this, a smooth experience in VR. So let's kick off this tutorial, and I'll show you how to get all this stuff up and running so you have a good experience in VR. Is just no other way to fly. So we're going to need a few things for this tutorial. We're going to need Avatab. You're going to need an Oculus Trey tool. You're also going to need Fly with Lua, the 3J plugin, and that should get us started for getting this tune for good VR. And a few things to get out of the way. This tutorial is for Oculus. I only have an Oculus Rift. I'm pretty sure all this will work for the Oculus S, but I don't have a Vive, and I know Vive specifically has to run Steam VR, if I'm correct, and I don't run Steam VR either, just the Oculus stuff, and of course an Oculus tool for changing some of the settings. So this tutorial is really for people who have an Oculus. The next thing is CPU and GPU matter. Having a fast CPU and GPU will definitely give you a better frame rate and a better experience in VR. I have a pretty fast GPU and CPU. I'm running a 8700K as well as a RTX 2070 card. Your experience may vary on the settings and how to get this running as smoothly as possible, but I think a lot of these concepts will help you be able to find where your PC runs VR the best. If you'd like to know more about the PC that I'm running, there's a link in the description that goes to PC Part Picker and lists out every price or every piece that's in my computer. As you can see, I also run Ortho for XP. I've noticed that running Ortho at 16 is about the best setting. Going higher than 16 to 17 or 18 does slow down VR, but as you can see, it looks pretty good at 16 as we fly over Southern California. I made a tutorial on how to set up Ortho for XP, and the link will be in the description if you have questions about that. So with all that out of the way, why don't we get started? Alright, let's get started. The first one you need is Avatab. Avatab is the virtual tablet that also has frame rate on it, so you can see what's going on. Just extract this thing. You can download Avatab on the link below, which comes from xplane.org. And once you extract it, you get this folder here, and you're just going to want to open up your XPlane 11 directory, wherever that may be. Mine's in Steam Apps Common XPlane 11. Then you're going to want to go into resources and then to plugins. And then you're just going to want to copy this folder over. I already have it in here, as you can see. So this is already installed, and just keep everything the way it is. And the next time you boot up XPlane, Avatab will be loaded. Next up is the Oculus System Tray tool. And this thing you can also get from the Oculus forums. There's a link in the description of this video, and you go to this one down here where it says update 2.704.86.2 is the version I'm using. And you click on that link, you download from Dropbox, and then save that. And then when you run that, this will run an installer and install the program, which I've already done. I don't want to overwrite what I've done, so I'm not going to go through that whole process, but just run that thing, and we will find that one later and set this one up as well. The next thing you need is Fly with Lua, which again, link in the description, and it's on xplane.org. And this is just the Lua engine for XPlane. So, and you want to get the latest one, especially if you're running 11.3 with the latest XPlane, I should say, which you should be if you're using VR. And then again, just extract this thing. It's gonna open up. There's Fly with Lua folder, which has the plugin in it. And again, it's gonna go straight back into XPlane 11 resources plugins. And just drag and drop it there. You can see there's my Fly with Lua as well. And lastly is the Trey FPS Wizard. Again, you can find this on xplane.org. You want to use the one for XPlane 3.0 and download this file. This file is just a Lua file, and as you can see, it's right here, .lua. And what you're going to do is you're going to put that into your XPlane 11 resources, plugins, Fly with Lua, and inside there's a folder called scripts, and you're going to want to drag this file and just put it in this folder, and then it will run the next time you run XPlane. You can also, when you installed Fly with Lua, there's another script file in here that says please read the manual. If you just put a period in front of it, it'll get rid of all the messages and stuff that pop up when you run the Lua thing telling you to read the manual. Alright, now let's find the Oculus tool that we downloaded, and our Oculus Trey tool, I should call it. And you're going to want to, I made a shortcut to my desktop for this. But you're just going to want to run that, as it says it's starting up down here. And then once it's open, the first thing you want to do is go to Power Options. And I think this is the one I changed. Set Power Plan on Start. I think it was set to Balanced or Power Saver, whatever it was set to. You want to set this to High Performance. I don't know why every single device we buy in computers wants to limit how much power it uses, because we all need the most power. So set this to high performance. The other thing I changed was the USB selective suspend. I disabled that. I heard that also causes problems with the thing will turn itself off or do other weird stuff. I haven't had any issues with that, but I was told, I saw some other videos saying disabling it helps, and so I did that. Next up, we're going to go to the only two other settings that you use in this tool, which is the game settings and the default AWS mode. I think it's set to auto by default. You want to change that to 45 FPS. This is pretty much going to try to maintain 45 FPS at all times, which equals 90 frames per second with the reprojection. And this should make your VR look good. The other thing I changed is the default super sampling. I had never played much with super sampling at all until I got this tool. I set it to 1.5. It didn't seem to have any detriment to my frame rate at all, but everything was much clearer with set to 1.5. If you have, you can always come back and change this layer, set it to 0, and see if your frame rate increases. But for me, 1.5, it didn't have any effect on my frame rate, and it made everything up crystal clear. So those are the only settings that I've done on the Oculus Trey tool. And now let's get into XPlane. So now we're going to load up XPlane. I run XPlane from Steam. Some of you may just have a standalone, but this is where I run it from. I made a shortcut for this, so if you want a desktop shortcut just to run this thing, it's right here in the menu. You can just right click and create desktop shortcut. So I always just run it from the desktop shortcut that I have, and it'll come right up. I run it in window mode since I never play the game in non-VR. I just run it in the small little window. It'll come up, and we're going to start a new flight because none of the scripts or anything load until you start a new flight. So I'm going to pick one of my airports, and we'll get this started here. Now let's load it up. You're going to see this little window here, flying with Lua for the first time, question mark, and a bunch of blinky crap all over the screen. This is because you did not put a period in front of that one file in the scripts folder. So from here, we're going to exit XPlane, and we're going to go back into that scripts folder. So that's going to be in your XPlane directory, resources, plugins, fly with Lua, scripts, and with this file that says please read the manual.lua, you're just going to select it and put a period in front of it. Close that down, rerun XPlane. Alright, now that we're here in XPlane, you'll see this thing up in the corner here. It's doing some stuff. So this is that 3J FPS wizard. This right here is going to pretty much give you the most frames that I've found in VR. I went and it boosted my average frame rate by at least 10 frames, if not like 12-ish. This thing was huge. And so I'm going to show you some of the setup on it. Right now it's just set to auto, it's doing its thing. But what we want to do is go into the advanced settings. And then in the advanced settings, in the first tab, which is the FPS control, we're going to set the FPS min to 45, the FPS max to 46. And you can just use these selectors to change these and make sure that says 45, 46. I didn't touch anything on the Q speed. I haven't really found that actually does anything. The next thing I went to was LOD, which is the next tab over. And I set the markers at just inside the green, at pretty much the lowest setting of green on both of these for LOD min and max. And this is the LOD for objects and stuff like that out in the level, or in the scenery. And then next, I didn't do anything with cloud density or cloud puff size. Anti-aliasing, I left this on. I do use anti-aliasing, but not when I'm recording videos, and there's a whole other reason for that. But I usually use anti-aliasing. This doesn't seem to really do a whole lot with different settings. Get about the same frame rate. Extras, I haven't touched any of this because I don't have scenery shadows, and I definitely don't use reflections. And then on the AGL visibility, I go in here and I turn these down to the lowest that's the closest to the green, pretty much the bottom of the green. And then display, I don't do anything else. Press save. When I do boot this up, I do set to max FPS before I go into VR, because that's the setting that I want to use. I'm not sure why I can't just tell it to use max FPS when I boot it up, but it always starts off at auto. But it's just one of those things that I gotta set every time. So that pretty much sums up the Fly with Lua and the 3J FPS Wizard. Next up is just your XPlane settings. First thing is to go into your flight configuration and AI aircraft, and this is one thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about. If you have a bunch of AI aircraft in here, it's going to slow down VR. It's calculating all kinds of crap for these guys. Most of them are at 40,000 feet flying overhead that you'll never see, so I tend to just turn them all off. It speeds up my VR. I don't need them. It'd be nice if there was a way to just say, hey, spawn a couple aircraft at my airport taxiing out, instead of spawning them randomly within like 1,000 miles of me. That would be a lot cooler, but with this, the default one, I just turn them all off, and it saves on frame rate. So I always make sure I don't have any AI aircraft going. Now for the real settings, which is the graphic settings. So these are my settings for what I use in VR. Now the anti-aliasing I will take up to 2x and get the same exact frame rate. But I don't for when I film videos and stuff. I put it at 0 for another reason I'll get into later if someone really wants to know. Visual effects I just set to high, set the texture quality to maximum. These right here are basically how much video memory you have. I think the 2070 RTX card I have has 8 gig. So as you can see, I'm using 4 gig of textures. It's fine. I basically can't run out. But on some lower cards, you may have 4 gig of texture memory, and you're going to want to lower these down so you don't go over that, to keep that in memory. Otherwise, it's going to start caching stuff and pushing texture files to your graphics card while you're flying around, which is going to give you hitches and other problems. But most cards I think now have at least like 6 or 8 if you get any of the newer cards. Going into the next thing, reflection detail. This is the make my computer run slow slider. That's literally all it does. I do not understand what reflection detail is doing. It's literally trying to do like reflection ray tracing real time, which, I mean, even with the RTX cards and special programming, they still can't do very well. I don't know why this is here. But yeah, if you turn this up at all, it just basically makes your computer run slow as crap. So I've always kept it down low. I mean, even does it in, if you turn it up on your desktop in 2D, it'll still run everything slow. So don't touch that. The number of world objects. This right here is basically your frame rate. This is your frame rate slider. I suggest that when you start this whole process out and you're at your airport, that you start with this, set to minimal. And that, well, minimal you won't even get airports, but set it to low, and then start sliding this up and seeing what your frame rate does, because this thing really is the number one thing that controls your frame rate in VR. And next up is drawn parked aircraft. I have that on. The scenery shadows I never turn on. That's another, this checkbox is make my computer go slow checkbox, so I never check that one either. Anti-aliasing, I have played with this. When you use one notch, I think I lose 1 frame. 2 notches, I don't lose. I lose the same frame I lost in the 1 frame. So it's just 1 frame is all I ever lose when I turn on anti-aliasing. Your results may be different, but that's all I can tell. So I run it at 2 when I can. Most of the time, I just have it off. So that's the settings for VR here. This is what I'm running on my current system. You may have to tweak some of these down a little bit. This, like I said, this the visual effects and texture quality is literally just how much RAM do you have on your graphics card. And this right here, the number of world objects, that's your frame rate. And the rest of it, just keep the make my computer slow button off and the make my computer slow slider off, and you'll be good. So that pretty much sums up the settings I have in XPlane. There's not a whole lot to it. This thing helps, like I said, the 3J FPS helps immensely. It literally gave me like 10 to 12 frames per second. And then the rest is just tweaking these values for what hardware you have in your computer. These just directly affect that. So now let's get into VR. So first we're going to pick an airport, and the airport you should pick is one that you get a low frame rate at, because you want the worst case scenario, right? So for me, it's a Payware Skyline KSNA or John Wayne Airport in Orange County. I always get a horrible frame rate at, so I'm gonna choose that. And then also the planes matter too. My lowest frame rate is in the Premier 1A. I believe right now I ran the the Saab 340 from Coronado as well. But I still think I get a worse frame rate in the Premier 1A, so I'm going to run that in this airport, so I should have the absolute lowest frame rate I could possibly come up with, and this will be my worst case scenario situation for running in VR. Alright, so now I'm in the game. I will go up here, click on this thing, and set to max FPS. I said before I had to do that every time. This is also where I'll set up my plane. A lot of different planes come with different windows and stuff that are only in 2D. So if you jump into VR, you're going to have to come back out and then adjust things. So like, hey, I want the false window on my plane. I don't want the static elements hanging around, and why not open the main door? And from here, then this is where I will go into VR. Oh, the other thing that you may want to do, I have the better pushback, so I will set up my better pushback pre-plan, right? In 2D before I get into VR. I can rotate this guy around here. Oh, hey, something like this. And enter. And
call me through the menu when you are ready.
And so now that's also set up as well. So when I get into game, when I get into VR, I don't have to come out for anything. By the way, keep in mind, if you don't bring it with you, you're not going to have it in VR. This comes with charts and everything else. The cool thing with Avatab, and I can show you some features of that, is you can make PDFs and bring all this stuff in, and including GeoTIFF maps and everything else you could possibly need, so that when you're in VR, you don't have to come out of it to adjust things. So now that we're ready, let's get into VR. I'm going to go up to the options menu, over to VR hardware. This will probably kick off your Oculus stuff and make your monitors blink and all that. This thing will pop up. I just minimize this, which is fine. And then you're going to want to click enable VR hardware, and then it'll start loading, and then it'll put you into VR. Alright, and now we're in VR. This thing, you can't click on anything in here until you say you're done, and it puts you in the menu options for VR. You'll notice that I have this cell phone aspect ratio for this thing. What I do is I don't use this to stream at all, so for my videos. Oculus comes with a really cool program that you can find. I'll show you. So Oculus, C: program files, Oculus support, diagnostics, and inside here there's a program called Oculus Mirror.exe. I just drag off and make a shortcut to that, and what that does, it'll come up now, and it's just black right now until I put my headset on, and then it will fill this entire thing with what's in my Oculus, which I can show you really quick. 1 second. So once I put on my Oculus, you'll be able to see exactly what I see, and this is what I use to stream and when I'm capturing the screen. If you take your Oculus off, it goes black again. So now let's jump into VR. So now we're in VR, and you just need to press the done button, and it's going to place you in the plane and adjust where you're sitting here. I'll set up my controls so I can adjust where I am. This thing is absolutely useless. I've actually found if you just press show map, it'll actually cause lag and frame rate delays, so I do not use this thing. Instead, what I use, if we go to plugins, Avatab, you'll have your Avatab tablet, and right in the top left corner. You can see the frame rate. So, it's loading some stuff. Sometimes it initially loads right when you get in the airport, so I always like to look around a little bit, and then it'll settle down and figure out what it needs to load. And so as you can see, we got a nice solid 45 FPS. So when you get in, this 45 FPS doesn't really mean much because the plane's not running. When the plane's off, it's not calculating any air physics or anything like that, so usually you get a better frame rate if your plane is off, but that doesn't really help you. So the first thing you want to do is turn your plane on, at least the avionics, and oops, move this. And as you can see right now, I just got a frame rate hit now to 41. Starting an engine also helps too, because it's going to start the I guess you'd say the airflow dynamics and calculations based on that. And so once you kick up your engines, everything will settle down. You'll have like a real frame rate of running a plane on this airport. And right now I have 41. So let's say you boot it up and you didn't have a good frame rate at all. It was choppy as hell. So just go into flight configuration, then you can get to the options. And let's say we got in, everything was set to maximum. It's going to take a little bit to load. And then once we're back, we'll resume flight. And as you can see, I'm already getting some hella lag, some jitters. I'm running, 34-ish. It's still, as I look around, it lags. So if you're getting stuff like that, you're just gonna want to reduce. Geez, everything's lagging. You just want to go in, like I said, go to flight configuration, then you can get to the options tool, and you're just gonna want to reduce this down. Maybe down to medium. It's gonna have to reload, but basically that is your frame rate slider. I'm gonna go resume. See, now I'm back in. And you give it a little time to adjust. I'm back at 46. Look around, no lag. So that's what you want. This is on medium settings. This isn't bad at all. Like, I'm totally cool with this. Again, it still dips because this literally is the worst airport I own for frame rate wise. I could sit in the middle of O'Hare and it's fine. 46 frames, 45 frames. But yeah, this thing is not optimized for VR. And but yeah, once I get airborne, which I can do here a second. Give me a moment. I have a really squeaky chair. I apologize. I got all the engines running. I turn on the generators. Oh, we had some lights. And anti-skid, I think I'm good. We can taxi on out here, just so I can show that, yeah, I'm gonna get 42. Can get pretty laggy. Like, look at that, it's down to 36 over here, and that's with my RTX 2070, and an 8700K. I have been running other programs and stuff, editing this video, etc. So my computer is not quite as quick as it would be if I just rebooted it and then just ran VR. But it's close. Yeah, I'm getting 36. That's in a medium. That's weird. I was running it earlier, just straight into VR, and I was getting 40s. So yeah, rebooting your computer before you run VR that's also a thing. Yeah, this thing takes every bit of power you have, but as you can see, it's still smooth. I can still move around. I can still type on this the flight computer. you know, I can still experience it how it should be experienced. And it's speeding up a little bit as I leave all the 700 planes that are on this on the tarmac behind me. But, so I do play with rudder pedals, by the way, so it's not totally in VR. I adjust my seat a little. You really need rudder pedals in VR. And this, I got my hands down, but Oculus doesn't have feet controls, so you're gonna need rudder pedals. Oh, the sound changed. It's weird. It did sound like I was outside almost, didn't it? Weird. Anyway, that's a new thing. And that's another thing, by the way. Once you do get it all working, here, I'm gonna pull the parking brake. You can go out and do a full inspection of your plane. Make sure everything's running good. That's some of the cool stuff about VR. Oops. You can go out and check it all out, as well as sit in the cockpit and but yeah, still 38, 39 frames. It's not so bad. You want to stay at 45, but 38, 39 is not so bad. But I hope this tutorial helped you. It does suck if you really, I mean, you set everything to low and you still can't get a frame rate. I hate to be the one to say it, but you probably need a new computer if you want to do this. It is the coolest thing ever, but it comes with a price tag. Oh, I probably should put the flaps down first. Okay. But yeah, there's nothing like it. Nothing like flying in VR at 100 and hopefully 20 knots. Rotate. Yeah, this experience is just great. You can see all the planes and stuff that are around this airport, which is why it runs so slow. But again, see, once I take off, 45 frames per second, and that's with full ortho all the way around this place. So that's why you pick your worst airport. Landing there is going to be the worst, which is about 35 frames a second. But once I get away from the airport, or land at any other airport, it looks totally fine. I think I may follow this tutorial up with kind of tips and tricks for the people that got it all working, are having fun flying in VR, on just how I use Avatab and how I set up my flights, and also how I stream them, and do a little video on that, because that also gets interesting. The shortened version on the streaming and capturing video is I have another computer that captures the video. Capturing video on the same computer, again, is going to use your CPU, again, is going to slow down VR, and so I really have to have another computer that captures the video for these, so I don't get any lag or anything like that. My whole arms, because I'm doing 340 knots. Man, this thing flies. Alright, I didn't rip the wings off. We're good. But thanks again for tuning in, and I hope this tutorial helped you. There's not a whole lot to optimizing VR, but besides buying the most expensive computer you can get, but there's a few plugins that really do help. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the skies. will be dead on the ground. Only time will tell. So if this tutorial helped you and you like this content, please like or subscribe and comment below. I do all videos related to XPlane, all in VR. You can always find me at ravensplanes.com, which will take you directly to my YouTube page right now. I'm working on a website to get more info and a different website to have more stuff on it in the future. But for right now, if you like what you see, please subscribe and like and shoot me any questions you have.